Hey guys, so Florida Grey Lady invited me onto her panel earlier to talk about the Sarah Boone case, and it turned into a pretty interesting conversation, I thought, and she gave me permission to clip that and put it on my own channel, so that's what I'm doing. And if you want to subscribe to her channel, if you've not already, I'll put the link in the description below.
So what do you think, Rabid?
Oh God, I could talk about Sarah Boone forever. It's such an interesting case. Even though on the face of it, it's a really simple case from what is in the public domain at the moment, but it's so unique because the whole case, as far as we are aware of, hinges on the crux of how you define second degree murder and how you define manslaughter, which is obviously different from state to state. But we all have a general understanding of the difference, right, between second degree and manslaughter.
Right.
And the key word is malice. And I was just watching the Karen Reed case, the trial, watching that back, which is obviously a different state. And she was explaining to the jury at the beginning the difference between second degree and manslaughter, because she's charged with second degree, but she was initially charged with manslaughter, Karen Reed.
Mm.
So the key word, kind of universally for me, is malice. To actually be perceived as committing murder, basically you intended the person to die. It's like most times those that cause the death through drunk driving is usually manslaughter, because it's kind of widely accepted that someone that got in a car when they shouldn't have done and driven didn't actually want to cause death, but they're still culpable, right?
Right.
And so this is what I've been arguing about regarding the Sarah Boone case, is that as despicable as her personality is, and as ridiculous as she sounds in the body cam and in the interrogation, at the end of the day, you can't convict someone for their personality. And and of course a lot of it is subjective, how you're viewing her as a person, but you have to prove in a court of law that she intended him to die in that suitcase. And based on the information we have at the moment, I don't think we can, in my mind, but
But
other people would disagree with that.
but with her not having proper legal defense and she's going to represent herself. Do
Well,
you think
that's
she is capable of defending herself to split the difference and to make the difference in that? I don't think she is.
no, I think she's got no chance, which would actually be a tragedy at the end of the day. But she's the only one to blame for it, because there is no way you can have these amount of problems with 8 attorneys and for it not to be your fault, right? That's why she's in this situation. But
Yeah.
I still, based on the information that we have at the moment, prior to the trial, I think it would be a tragedy if she's convicted of second degree murder. I just do not believe she intended to murder him.
Can
But
I ask? Oh, go ahead.
no, just to agree with you, I think she's toasted now that she's representing herself, because she's actually a very smart person, but she's like too smart for her own good. All that she is really, the thing that's at the forefront of her mind, I think, is just the fact that she knows that she didn't intend his death. So she has no regard for how she's perceived by other people. And she's going to fight her cause to the nth degree, but she's just pissing off everyone. She
Yeah.
obviously can't communicate well with her attorneys. There's obviously been problems. And there's going to be no 12 people on a jury that are going to want to believe her. You know, that's going to be
Well,
her big problem.
Well, I agree. Well, I kind of agree with that too, because she said that he said that he couldn't breathe, and she should have listened.
Well, that's what I was going to ask Rabid. Like, what do you make of the video where, you know, the one where she's telling him all
Yeah,
these terrible things and he's begging,
yeah.
saying he can't breathe, and then down the stairs he had bruises. What do you think of that?
So the video is the worst thing. It's her biggest problem, obviously, because it's horrendous. And it's like looking at it coldly, it's kind of
Mm.
interesting, right? Because I think we all have this gut reaction to want the punishment that the victim suffered to equate to the punishment of the perpetrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our
Yep.
gut wants Sarah to suffer just as much as that guy must have suffered. I mean, it's hard to think of a worse way to die, to be trapped in a goddamn suitcase and not being able to breathe, and knowing that your partner is right there.
Mm.
And you can also deduce as well from the video. There's a second video, a very short video, which is taken
Oh,
straight after the first one, where the suitcase is the correct way up, and you can see her flip flop next to the suitcase. So she's obviously gone over and flipped over the suitcase, and she's probably
oh my
thrown. She,
God.
she might have thrown her flip flop, or it just fell off her foot or whatever, right? But can you imagine what's going on in his head? He's begging her to let him out, and he feels her coming up and moving the suitcase. So he has to be thinking that she's about to let him out, but it doesn't happen, right?
And
Yeah.
he's begging to
It's
breathe.
begging to breathe. It's like JC saying in chat, it's torturous, literally
Mm.
torturous. So, so like I say, everything in your gut thinks that she should get the maximum penalty because you can't imagine a worse death than that. But did she
There's
intend him
domestic
to stop breathing?
violence, right?
Well, there's a whole trail of domestic violence between the two of them, apparently going both ways. We don't quite know at this stage, like what the balance was like, but in the video, she's screaming at him that this is how it feels when you choke me, and apparently she had just found out that he was talking to all these other girls on Facebook, so she was trying to punish him. Like my argument is simply that she was an alcoholic, like that's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to sound that drunk, like an alcoholic to sound that drunk, an alcoholic's body gets so accustomed to alcohol, it takes a lot for them to
Yeah,
appear as
Yeah, because
drunk as most people would, right?
you throw up.
because once after you drink for so long, it takes more to get you drunk.
Yeah.
Exactly, your body gets accustomed to it.
Yep.
So she's clearly paralytic drunk. And my argument is that she simply was just trying to be cruel and she was wanting to punish him. But to me, there's such a big difference between that and her actually wanting him to die. But
But
her, like, on you go.
I'm sorry, if she was so incoherent, which she clearly doesn't sound like she's sober at all. She sounds very drunk.
Yeah,
But yeah, it kind of seems that she's pretty focused and knows what she wants to say. And she formed a plan to knock him around in that suitcase. And with premeditation, it doesn't take a lot of time. It could take a minute. It could take 30
that's
seconds.
true. That's right.
When
Yeah.
you form it and you act on it, that's premeditation. And the fact that he was helpless and she sent him down the stairs because he have like all these bruises and they think she kicked, like somehow got that suitcase to go down the stairs.
It seems like that's probably what happened, because there's two separate neighbors that heard loud thudding noises from the wall that was obviously part of the staircase.
When
So
you
it's
say the suitcase was flipped over, is it possible she could have kicked them?
what, when she's taking the video downstairs, you mean?
Well, at some point when she flipped over
Possible.
the suitcase,
Possible,
was
yeah.
that on video?
Her turning over is not on video. You just deduce that because of the gap. It's like the second video is taken very quickly after the first one, and you can see that the suitcase is the other way around, but it's not captured on the video.
Could she have kicked him during that time and caused the damage then? Because she's not a big woman.
No, it's just quite small, right?
Yeah, and being drunk, you think she'd be a little more off, by the stairs, trying to, like you would picture her going down the stairs with the suitcase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I could picture her falling down the stairs with it.
Yeah, that's what I said. That it would just take her with it, right? I don't know. It's like I agree with it you're saying, Rabbit, because it does make sense. There's a lot of things to this relationship. It's not so cut and
yeah,
dry. And at the same
absolutely.
time,
Yeah.
in the court, and she doesn't have somebody who knows the system, how to work the system, adios, goodbye.
Oh, I think you're right.
I just don't think that she's going to be capable. I think they're going to get her on the highest charge they can get her on, because she's not going to be able to defend herself to get a lower sentence.
No, I think, and we've seen a lot. We've seen her letters. We've read her letters. We've seen footage of her in court at some of the recent hearings, and her biggest problem, I think, is that there's just no sense of humility or responsibility from her. It's just all out attack from her.
Very
Because,
emotional.
yeah. So I agree. I don't think she's got a hope. And at the end of the day, like it's a very gray area for me. Like I'm not. I could easily be argued out of manslaughter, especially if we see more in the trial. More evidence of
Malice,
premeditation and malice. Yeah. So it's a very gray area, but it's a really interesting one to me because it's so unique. But then when I think about the fact that if you think about Letitia Stout, right? Are you aware of that case with Letitia Stout? Yeah.
With
So
Gannon.
with Gannon, like it's pretty hard to think of a more horrendous person than her, right? She obviously got first-degree murder. It's just I'm kind of uncomfortable with the fact that there could be 1 degree of separation between Letitia and what she did to Sarah Boone.
Yeah, if I understand you correctly, it's like undermining the atrociousness of what Letitia Staunch did by separating it only 1 degree compared to what Sarah Boone did. Because while both were horrible instances, they're very different in the people
Intention.
involved. Yes, the viciousness, all of it. It's like a whole nother level, and you don't want to undermine the seriousness of that either. So you have to have a distinction. That's true.
Yeah, it's all about the intention, and to me, there's a world of difference in terms of the intention between someone that would normally get first degree in what Sarah did. And don't forget, manslaughter is still a conviction of holding her responsible. Her being convicted of manslaughter would still be her being punished for what she did. It's just a step down, obviously, from second degree. It's taking away the malice. Even though we would all agree what she did was malicious, in a legal sense, malice is very different,
But I think she did it with malice or she, like Beth says, she wouldn't have put her in there, her saying, her saying, this is what it feels like. So that was intent.
It was. She intended to be cruel to him. She intended
Yes.
him to suffer. But did she intend him to stop breathing? Is my point, right? Because if she did want him to die, you also have to explain why she did zero to cover her tracks. She
She
didn't
was
delete the
drunk.
video. She blacked out, I think. Yeah.
I
But
mean, the thing she was saying to him, when people get that drunk, they get goofy. They talk and they talk and they say whatever also. It's not like they're mindful of what they're saying, Their inhibitions are lowered. And she's just whatever, letting it out.
Well, I
yeah.
don't think she intended to kill him,
Well,
but I still think it ought to be murder, in my opinion, because there is malice to cause him pain.
hmm Yeah, and see, this is the thing. This is why it's so interesting, because there's not many people agree with me. Most people
no,
don't.
I see your point, and I'm kind of like on the fence, only because there's more to this relationship, like you said in your video, it's a lot more going on. Oh, sorry. And she may not have intended to kill him, but and I could see all that. My trouble is when he's saying, I can't breathe. Sarah, I can't breathe. And
Yeah.
she ignored that. That is a hard one, the I can't breathe over and over.
Well, I
It
mean,
is.
I know it's not a comparison, but that's like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna play Jimmy here. I'm gonna go out with the gun. All right.
That's felon.
Okay. I'm gonna go out with the gun, and I don't intend on hurting anybody. No intentions on it.
hmm
But if I gotta inflict a little bit of pain, that's okay. So I'm gonna pull this trigger and shoot you in the ass. My intent was to shoot you in the ass. But I
No
can't
one
shoot.
wants to get shot in the ass, right?
But I
No.
can't shoot. So I hit you in the guts and you bleed to death.
hmm
I only wanted to
Well,
hurt you a little bit,
yeah.
but I end up murdering you because I can't shoot worth a shit.
Or maybe the gun is empty and the person has a heart attack because they're terrified.
But you see what I'm saying? I didn't intend to hurt that person,
Yeah.
but I can't shoot for shit. So when the
Well,
gun jumped for me pulling the trigger, it hit him in the guts and he bled to death.
well,
I didn't.
it depends on the context, the circumstances, right? I mean, someone could argue self-defense there.
No, she just said about robbing someone,
Robbing someone?
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you go to a store to rob someone and
No, I'm just going to borrow their money because I have no intent on hurting them.
right. And the robber shoots the shop assistant or whoever,
Uh-huh.
and didn't intend to actually kill them, just wanted to maim them.
Yes.
That'd be a tough one to argue, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, gun's a deadly weapon, and you brought it into the situation,
But
and
like I said, you see what I'm saying?
I do,
That's,
yeah.
yeah. So like I said, I intended to hurt him just a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't shoot.
Yeah, so I accidentally killed them.
Yeah.
How-
So
how
is that
about this?
murder or is that?
Well, what about when
Well,
someone drinks and drives? I don't think they get in their car thinking I'm going to kill somebody, but prior to getting drunk and getting into their car, they damn well know that that car can be like a weapon, and that people who drink and drive most certainly, can end up killing somebody. And they're willing to take that risk. So when they're not thinking like that when they're drunk, but it does, because you overconsumed alcohol and drank too much, that was a choice you made. But
I
at some
agree.
point, you were coherent before you got yourself intoxicated like that, and you chose to go behind the wheel of a car. And if somebody does end up dead, then that is murder.
Well, see,
Because
like
you had
Beth.
knowledge before you were in that position what could happen.
Well, see,
That's not an excuse.
like Beth's last comment fits into mine. I didn't mean to hurt him, but I shot him in the wrong place because I don't know how to shoot. But I intentionally walked away and left the man bleed to death. Like she intentionally left him in that suitcase when she walked away.
Well,
Oh,
just to go
oh,
back to your sorry, just to go back to your first example, like that would be a situation where it would they would normally someone coming in with a gun robbing a place, right? There's so much intent there,
yeah.
and then the person ends up dying. The default charge there would be first degree murder, right? And
Yeah,
then
it gets upgraded, right?
well, it would just naturally be first degree murder.
Mm,
But if it was a situation like you're arguing that, well, listen, he didn't actually mean to kill the shopkeeper, and you can provide evidence that that wasn't his intention, there would only ever be a chance for that to be downgraded to second degree. I think that's the difference between that example and Sarah Boone, what happened there. And in terms of the second example with drunk driving, like, there's a lot of people that agree with you that think that that should be a second degree murder charge. Um, to me, that's still manslaughter to me because it's kind of similar to the Sarah Boone thing, right? Because of the injustice of someone dying at the hands of a drunk driver, it it gets us right in the gut, right? Because it's just a completely innocent person that is just wiped out,
well, it's
where they
more
couldn't
than
do
that.
anything about it.
It's more than that. It's the fact that before they got so drunk,
Uh-huh.
they already know that something like that can happen, and they were willing to gamble somebody's life by getting so intoxicated and getting behind the wheel of a car. But I do understand that once they become intoxicated, they're not thinking right. But my point is, they were thinking just fine before they got intoxicated. So it's their responsibility to either not get so intoxicated or have a designated driver.
Well,
So it's the knowledge before the act, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
choose to do the act anyway.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right, and that's why a lot of people think it should be a second degree murder charge, right?
Yeah.
But
I don't
the
think they went out and tried to kill somebody. No.
right.
But
So that that'd be the difference for me, right? Like, even in that example, and I get what you're saying about, prior to them beginning to drink, knowing that they don't have a designated driver or whatever, then that that's a notion of intention. That's a decision being made, and that should be something that needs to be taken responsibility for, right? But at the same time, there was never ever a point in almost all of those situations where that person ever even contemplated the notion of someone dying or
so you're talking about the intention.
causing harm.
You're talking about intent. They didn't have intent to kill
The,
anyone.
yeah,
I have
or harm
maybe
anyone. Yeah.
But
something that might be a better example.
knowing he could not breathe, him telling her he could not breathe, and her still making no attempt to let him out.
Yeah,
And
but
and knowing that and walking away from him.
Or
right.
at least unzipping the suitcase a little so he could breathe.
Yeah, but the big difference here is the mitigating circumstances, which to me are inarguable that she was plastered drunk and out of her mind, which is similar to the drunk driving example, right? She
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
not of sound mind. I do not, and it's kind of funny. Well, it's not funny, it's horrendous, but
No, we know
you
what you
know,
mean.
when you think about it, right? Like, would we all assume um, that someone being a suitcase would actually suffocate? I'm not sure. Like, I would have realized that before looking at this whole case.
The
You
problem
know,
is he's telling her he can't breathe.
true, yeah, but as I was saying, this is where the mitigation comes in, right? Because she was not of sound mind to me at that point. I don't think she had any. It's like the drunk driver. She just had no notion in her head
Mm-hmm.
that this was going to end up with him dying. As obvious as it looks to us in retrospect, in viewing the video, that's different, right? I think.
I don't know
Well,
because I would assume I would assume just because I've traveled that suitcases aren't breathable because
I
they're
don't know if I
lined.
would have known that. I don't know if I would have known that
Because
though.
they're lined.
It's
They're
obvious.
lined on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's obviously true, right, that someone would suffocate, right, as we found out, being zipped up in there. But I don't know if it would be that obvious to everyone, right? And then if you add to the fact that someone's plastered drunk and they're just concentrating on, punishing their partner because of something that's happened to them from them, you know? Um,
you know what? I have this now. I don't know. Maybe this is a good example. Maybe it's not. There was the crime where the woman was drinking. I don't think that she was as plastered as Sarah Boone was, but she definitely had drinks in her. And she was driving. She hit a man. He
mhm,
literally was halfway through the windshield with his legs on the hood of the car.
mm,
And she panicked, parked her car in the garage, and didn't help him because she was drinking. And she told her friend, and when they went back, he was dead.
mm,
He bled out,
mm,
you know?
yeah,
So there's another scenario where you have somebody drinking, but again, I don't know that her level of intoxication was comparable to Sarah Boone, or she was just afraid of getting in trouble and panicked and, you
yeah,
know, and she just left him there and then he bled out and died. So that's a case where did she mean to kill somebody? Did she set out to kill somebody? No,
yeah,
but she didn't offer assistance and he died.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I mean, it's crazy.
it is crazy, and I think the hardest thing is that I think all cases need to be analyzed individually,
No,
depending
you
on,
make a good point because there's so many variables. It's
yeah,
really hard to compare this one to this one because the variables are very different. You're right. I agree.
Yeah, but okay, as long as this is taken and it still ain't even to trial yet. It's not even to jury selection yet.
mm, September
Unless
is the trial date, I think.
unless they get actually it's not it would I don't even think it would help. They couldn't even do a change of venue.
Mm.
This case is so well known. She is already convicted.
She would certainly agree with you. She's been making that argument about the way she feels she's been treated in the media and on social media. I don't know anyone else that's arguing for anything other than her being guilty, to be honest,
But she's
It's
been offered so many lawyers. She has some accountability in how long she's been sitting there.
yeah. It's over 6 years.
And
I mean,
and what was it, like 10 lawyers, I think?
8. It's
8.
gone through 8
Oh,
lawyers.
okay, 8. I knew it was high. 8, yeah, it's a
But
lot.
like I said, I don't think there is a place that they could change a venue and find somebody that's not going to convict her. I honestly don't think there is.
You know, even though I'm saying that it's such a, it's not an easy argument to make for manslaughter, right? I can easily see why people think that this is second-degree murder, but at the same time, it kind of always puzzled me that some ambitious attorney didn't volunteer to come in and do this pro bono, because I think it's a very winnable case. I really do. But that's
Did
obviously
they
never happened.
did they check her alcohol level to get an idea of just how intoxicated she was?
I goddamn hope they did.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
But
thinking,
I
yeah,
mean, there.
that would be a critical point.
Well, there's things we don't know either because do we even know what she said to the ex-boyfriend on the phone?
well, he was interviewed about that the next day, or very shortly after it, and he said that it was just gibberish, drunken gibberish, and he was accustomed to getting these late night calls, these drunken
Oh,
calls from Sarah.
no mention of the guy in the suitcase or
No.
okay.
And see, these are all the problems that Sarah's got, is her actions and her personality and her seeming lack of perspective, especially in the body cam on the morning and in the interrogation. It's kind of fascinating that she seemed to be more ashamed and defensive about her alcoholism than she did seem to be in
About
pain about the loss of George, about her boyfriend. She was more defensive about that than suffering that he just died the previous morning, you know?
Well, could it be guilt that she felt ashamed about the alcoholism because
Probably, yeah, buried deep there within
if I
her.
wasn't so drunk, this would never have happened. I can't believe it happened, and it was a hard thing to face that her
Yeah.
drinking resulted in this.
She's got to know that that's the reason this happened. She's got to know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think she's able to voice that on the surface, you know? And I
Mm-hmm.
think she just sort of, for some reason, she just transfers that into this outrage that she had at the interrogators for even believing that this could be intentional. But they had every reason to accuse her of that based on the evidence and based on the video. But she was just so outraged that they would even believe that she'd be capable of something like this, right? So she just wasn't focused on her responsibility, you know? And it was just all defense.
Why don't they evaluate her
okay,
for her ability to
we have a
communicate well,
question.
Yeah.
process
We have a
things, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
we have a question. It says, "I think you would definitely at Rabbit if it was your relative. I always try to put myself in how they are feeling."
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that, and I know that Anna said earlier you can't blame the alcohol. You have to, though, right? I mean, just imagine that this had all, everything was the same in this case, but she was stone cold sober and she did that, right? I mean, you've
Could
got
be
to,
murder. No doubt.
no doubt, right? But thinking about just like imagining that this was your relative that this happened to. Well, I agree with you. Like, I would be seeking um, biblical revenge if it was my relative. I absolutely agree with you. But you have to try and take that out of the analysis, you know, when you're looking at cases in law. It's not an easy thing to do, but you just have to, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to think as like a social collective rather than your emotional, personal reaction, how you would react. I think
But,
like I would forgive anyone for reacting that for reacting that way.
but you know what? You also, if you're gonna look at it that way, like imagine if it was your relative. Imagine if Sarah Boone was your relative. You got to look at it both sides that way.
Oh
To be
yeah,
fair.
I agree with that. Right? I just it's just like when you think about things like you know, capital punishment. Like I'm against capital punishment um universally, just as a like as a fundamental principle. But if something happened to one of my family members, if I had a family member killed, then I would just be taking the law out of the equation, and I would seek my own capital punishment and just accept the consequences of that, right? But that's me as an actual individual human being. But that's by making that choice, I'm aware that I'm outside of how society should legally deal with situations. If that makes sense, right?
Yeah, but look at
Right.
Ted Bundy.
Hmm.
Sometimes capital punishment is warranted. Ted Bundy,
Right,
he not
exactly.
only was in prison, but he escaped. And then he did even more murders. This is a man that was very intelligent in a crafty, sneaky, deviant way. And any out that he would find, I mean, he lost weight. He went through the ceiling and he escaped. Another time, he jumped out of the second floor of a courthouse during court and he took off and he killed even more people. I
It's
mean,
crazy.
right. And so I think sometimes capital punishment is good for a situation like that, where this is such a dangerous individual, and to protect society, like, like for Sarah Boone, obviously that would be not even close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
But
I don't know. This is very hard one.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be a hard, like I said, it's gonna be a hard case, but I don't think she has there I don't think they will offer her a lower one what they're gonna charge her with because she's not gonna have a lawyer there
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
fight it.
that's an interesting question, actually. I was wondering myself if the jury would have the option to downgrade it to manslaughter, because I know that happens in some situations, some states, but I don't know in this situation.
I don't think the jury themselves can download it. The jury is given,
The option,
uh, well, it depends. It depends what options they're given. And
yeah.
then they would be able to choose.
Well, see,
But
that's like Karen retrial. They were given so many options, and then they couldn't agree on none of those. So then the judge crossed off this one and added this one, and they still couldn't decide.
yeah, and
So,
just to go back to the capital punishment thing, um, you also don't know that a death penalty is necessarily a deterrent to certain criminals, right? Like that's the first point. Some of them don't care. But the other point that for me is that capital punishment only makes sense if you're religious and you literally believe in a hell. Because if not, then how do we know that killing someone is worse than them suffering in jail for the rest of their life in misery? Like that's the worry I would have, right? That there is no hell and you're just switching the lights off. Maybe they're reincarnated into a better life or something, right? Or it's
true.
just no, they're not
Yeah, but
suffering.
Ted Bundy knew he was in serious trouble, and every time he escaped, he killed so many people. And the second time he escaped, he killed a 13-year-old girl. And this was not a man who was going to stop. He
Right, and
would have to be stopped. So I think sometimes there are exceptions, and the death penalty shouldn't be thrown around. But this is a man that, if he wasn't stopped, there would be more innocent dead people. That's for
Well,
sure.
yeah, but the death penalty wasn't going to deter him, though, right? He was still going to do what he was going to do, regardless
Well,
of what the punishment
that's
would be.
my point. He was going to do what he was going to do, which is why he needed to be put to death, to protect the people in society. Whether
Well,
it acts as a deterrent or not, it would stop this man and save other people's innocent lives from
that's
this
if
savage.
well, the alternative would just for him to be locked up for the rest of his life, right? So
He
then you
gets
have to
out.
decide that then you, but oh yeah, so you're saying that he kept escaping, right? Well, then you obviously have him in imprisonment where that's impossible for him to escape. Like there are places like that, right?
yeah.
Solitary confinement for the rest of his life, or whatever the circumstances, right? So
If they
then,
could confine him like that, then yeah, I'd be for that.
yeah, yeah,
But if
it's just
they
crazy.
can't and he escapes again, then no.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I mean, yeah, I agree with that.
Like he never should have been able to get out of a courthouse the way he did, but he did. And you would think, oh, he's not going to be able to leave, but they left him alone, and there you go. He did it
I only realized relatively recently that Ted Bundy actually escaped twice and
twice.
committed
yeah.
more murders. I don't know if everyone knows that. It's crazy.
He lost weight, and the light fixture, he was chipping away at it.
Hmm.
And in the meantime, while he's doing that, um, you know how they have the bunk beds in the prison?
Hmm.
He would jump from the top of the bunk bed down to build
Mm.
up his legs so that
Mm.
if he needed to jump, he would jump. And it did come in handy the second time he escaped because
Mhm.
he jumped from the second floor window, landed, took off, and then he
Mm.
killed all those girls.
Mhm.
Well, the one time he killed the girls in the sorority house and he went on a rampage. And then he killed that 13-year-old girl the other time he escaped.
Mhm.
And it's like, if they can't keep this man contained, they need to put him down. Because if they can keep him contained, that's another story. That's fine. But if they can't, then I don't think
Do you
other
know?
people have to die because of it.
You know another unique thing about Ted Bundy is he's such an anomaly
Mm-hmm.
because most criminals that have that kind of compulsion are s- are they have a certain type, right? They're normally socially awkward. They they normally have no success with the opposite sex. They're usually not oil paintings. They're not charismatic. Whereas Ted Bundy is the outlier. He's so
Mm-hmm.
unique in that way. He was extremely charismatic. He was attractive to the other sex.
Yeah.
He was also successful with
Mm-hmm.
the other sex. I mean, some of these creeps do what they do because they simply can't succeed, in the normal way of life, right? So this is their only. They feel that this is the only way that they can get what they need. But he had none of those traits, but
Well, not.
still he had this
Mm.
compulsion.
He had that compulsion when he was younger. He
Well,
he's like, they can't prove it, but when he was a very young teenager, they think he murdered the little girl when he delivered his newspapers.
I
And
heard
then
that. Yeah.
when he was born, there's a belief that his mother went to a place for unwed mothers back in the day, and She didn't want him. She left him there. Her
Mm.
father made her go and get him. And that was after, like, I think 2 or 3 months. And supposedly her father is the father of Ted Bundy.
Mm. And did
So
he
there's a
not?
lot of crazy
Yeah.
things there.
Oh,
But
psychological nightmare.
yeah,
Mhm. And then to top it off, her parents, because she lived with her parents and Ted, they had him calling his mother his sister and believing that her parents, which were really his grandparents, were his parents.
true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
And yeah, so there's a lot. And then the woman, he had a type. He had girls with long brown hair. And there was a woman that he really liked. And she cared about him, but not in the way that he cared. And she moved on. And she didn't feel that he was going in a direction. And that kind of spurred him into proving that he can succeed. And he
Mm.
was succeeding. And
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, I don't know if you know the author Anne Rule, but she
I
wrote the
do.
book about him. And she has a lot of police history
Mm-hmm.
in her family, even going back to her grandparents and everything. And he used to work alongside her on a
but
suicide hotline,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually saved people. And then
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
he would come to her house. She was friends. He would walk her out of the parking lot at night. It was only the two of them. She felt safe. And she was worried about her daughter Leslie, and he reassured her, "Oh, nothing's gonna happen to Leslie." You know, it was just the creepiest thing. And then one of those women that he actually spoke to on the suicide hotline, that he had managed to handle the call very well, got her help, saved her life. There's suspicion that he went back later on and actually killed that girl.
Wow.
but
So this, it's a lot to unpack with that one.
Oh God, yeah.
have they even Rabbit? I don't even think they've released anything as far as Sarah Boone. They haven't released any toxicology, have they?
There's no toxicology. There is a
That
lot
we know of. That we know of.
that we know of. Yeah. Um. I mean, yeah, that we know of. They're bound to have done toxicology, but it's still surprising. There's actually a lot of information out there pre-trial on this one. I know Florida, the Sunshine State laws are a bit different and things, but we have so many interviews with witnesses in this case prior to trial. It's kind of amazed me. It's great for us as true crime
Well,
observers, but
Florida's the only thing you really can't get here is like domestic violence or like the child's abuse records and that. For the
right,
most part, the rest of them are wide open. You can get to.
yeah, yeah.
I wonder if she'll have the wherewithal to even ask for discovery and review that
Oh,
information.
she's been begging for the discovery.
Oh,
Yeah, but
that's good.
Yeah.
she's been giving it to her too, but she still says she's never got anything. So what I'm saying, I don't think that she's gonna. I don't think they're gonna be able to. She's gonna be able to defend herself, and they're gonna go in there with the max charge, and that's what she's gonna get.
I'm really surprised they didn't do some kind of psychological assessment on her.
Yeah, you've got to think they must have done, but who knows? Because if you watch the interrogation in some of the interviews, those investigators were not impressive at all.
Mm,
I
mm.
mean, that was one of the worst interrogations you'll ever see. It was great from a true crimes fan's point of view, but professionally, they couldn't have been worse at interrogating her. They were just arguing with her. They got no more information from her than what they already had in the video.
Well, like I said, I mean, I'm not gonna say they're the brightest people in the state. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, some people are, some people aren't, you know.
But like I said, I don't know. I just have this strange thing that they're gonna try and get her on murder, because I think they're gonna have her for intent with walking away, and he says he can't breathe.
Yeah, see, that's the biggest thing, is that he not only said he couldn't breathe, he did it repeatedly over and over and over.
See, the big question as well, and I don't know if this is maybe part of the reason why she's had so many problems with all these attorneys, is that has she accepted that she's going to have to use her own alcoholism as her main defense strategy? Because otherwise, she's got no chance.
Yeah, it's a good question, especially when you said that you were so ashamed of it and so defensive and combative about it.
Well, and don't get me wrong, they're still making hooch in jail.
What's that?
Jailhouse wine.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know about that. Okay,
because
thank you.
that's another factor to Sarah Boone, is how is she going to be after 6-7 years without that level of alcohol intake, right?
Well,
How different is she going to be? But she can obviously still get some alcohol inside, but nowhere near the levels that she was, surely.
oh, you'd be surprised,
Really?
because part of the diet, well, in Florida, the diet is you will get fruit at breakfast and dinner. Usually it's either a whole orange or a whole apple.
Mm-hmm.
And you get bread with usually, well, you'll get toast in the morning, whatever the hell you call toast they make now. Sometimes okay, but you get your bread for 3 meals. And that's what they're doing, is the yeast in the bread
And
and
the fruit.
the fresh fruit. They're ferment, yes.
Oh my goodness, they think of everything.
Well, that's what remember, I worked there. So
I know.
it's in a plastic bag, they hide it, and it just basically it rots, it ferments.
Ugh.
And it's got the breaded for the yeast in it. And then every couple of days they burp it, which means they open it, let the air out, seal it. In a couple more days, they burp it again. You know, depends on how strong they want to make it.
Different world.
Totally different world in there.
Wow. Scary.
But they can make the alcohol. Depends on how long they want to keep it hidden. You wouldn't believe how many bags of that shit I found on top of my oven.
Wow. I'm like, if she's so ashamed of her alcoholism and she's all emotional about it, I don't see how she's going to present a coherent case. Because if she can't own that and admit it to herself that she has a problem, I think honestly the best move would, I mean, like, did she even get alcohol treatment or in jail or ask for it? Because that would be a good thing for her, in her favor, at least, to, you know, admit she had a problem, try to do something about it. And then she could say how it contributed.
But like I said, nobody's saying she's not getting her alcohol in there, which she still could be.
Like even though how you're describing is still possible inside. Surely it's not possible to the kind of levels that someone like her would be accustomed to, though, right?
Rabid, it took, when I still worked at the jail, at one time, before, how do I say this? We had a guy in there that was so through withdrawals so bad. He drank the hand sanitizer because it had alcohol in it.
Wow.
Okay. He didn't think of what could happen, did not care what could happen. It was the alcohol. He wanted the alcohol in the hand sanitizer.
Wow. Can you imagine being in a situation like that where you need something like that so bad?
No, I
You,
can't. I mean, it didn't take long, and they went through the whole jail down here, and everything was changed to where it was non-alcohol anything.
mm,
Yeah, but like I said, he didn't care.
yeah.
Next thing you know, he's sick as a dog in the hospital because that shit's poisonous. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, because it was in the big, we had the big like gallon bags that went in a wall dispenser.
Wow.
He drank it.
Wow. Crazy stuff.
It really all depends on just how hard up that person's going to be.
Yeah, addiction is probably the worst thing anyone could ever fall into. And alcohol's probably the worst of them all, to be honest.
I have a question, Florida.
Yeah,
With all the alcohol that's around in the prison, that they're gonna find a way, and if she's drinking
yeah,
now, I'm not even saying to the level that she was at the time this happened, but if there's some level of intoxication, is she even going to be allowed to represent herself? Then what would happen?
prove it.
Blood test.
Make her take one.
They can't force it.
Nope.
Even if she's going to represent herself?
Nope.
Wow, that's crazy.
Prove it.
Huh.
That's like if a person is driving. If you do not take the blow test when you were caught on the road, you are taken back to the jail. You are asked to take that blow test again. If you refuse that blow test again, they will take your blood then.
Oh, okay. So there is a way they could get to be able to take her blood. So they
But I'm saying
suspect.
this is when you're first booked in, okay?
Right.
So that option is done when you're booked in.
Oh.
There is no reason throughout her time being there unless she is injured or something that they would need to take her blood again.
Have they ever found any alcohol in her cell or anybody?
I'm not saying she has been drinking, but they would have to have just cause to take that blood.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just listening to what you said earlier about how there is alcohol in there. And being that, for her to be so drunk like that, clearly she's a person who doesn't have a drink once a year. So she would need to maybe go through withdrawal or seek it out. And I'm just curious, that'd be interesting, like if she did that and, she was not.
She is, which we already know she probably is an alcoholic. They would have put her in more than likely in medical when she first got booked,
Yeah.
which would have been for withdrawal.
Okay.
Okay, they would have watched her through the withdrawal and helped her through the symptoms. But once you were taken out of medical and put into GP, to Gem Pop with everybody else, her tolerance to the alcohol has dropped. The longer you go without, it drops. So you don't need as much to get drunk again. It's like that's like a drug addict. Once you go through rehab and you've been off of it 60, 90 days, 120 days, it takes less to get you high. So it takes less to get you drunk, as same thing.
Yeah. I imagine once that happens, then the dependency would come straight back to what it was before.
Yes, but it won't be, you won't need you won't need to drink as much.
You won't need as much, yeah.
Because your system has to build back up again.
But being in a situation that she's in, I mean, people who abuse alcohol are masking issues that they don't deal with.
Yeah.
And if there's alcohol in that prison and where she has access to it, I'm not saying she does, that's a big temptation for her.
Yeah, it is. So that's what I'm saying. That's like if she would have went through the detox in medical and then went into Gen Pop, and the alcohol's in Gen Pop.
I've got to imagine it's a high commodity in there, though, right? Like not everyone's going to be able to produce it from.
Not everyone does.
What's in there.
It's constantly moved.
Yeah.
I mean, like me, I could look in, let's say, like I said, I found more than I would care to admit to, on top of my ovens.
Wow.
Okay, because it may have been there today and we found it, but it may not have been there tomorrow if we would have waited, or it may not have been there the day before. We just happened to get lucky to find it.
Wow.
That day.
Well, wouldn't that be kind of expensive, like such a commodity? Like she'd have to have something to offer.
Yeah, there'll be something that replaces currency in there. There'll need to be some sort of currency between the inmates, right? So she would have to have the means to be able to get it.
Well, not to be rude, but she's a girl, so it depends on how desperate she is, right?
Well, okay, you've got that. You've got, if anybody has given her commissary, it can be either put on somebody's books, it can be put on Sarah's books, and she buys the stuff on her commissary and just, gives it. Okay, it could be anything that they're switching for in there.
Because I'm thinking, like, even though she may have gone to a draw, the temptation is there, and the psychological issues that made her drink in the first place, do they address them? Do they send them to some kind of, I don't know, AA classes for Alcoholics Anonymous or something in the prison?
They don't have to.
I get it.
Unless you're court ordered to go to it while you're in there, you don't have to go.
What if she shows up in court and she's intoxicated on some level? Would they then be able to proceed, or can they do the blood test?
Okay. They blood test her then.
Okay, so that answers that. So if it comes down to the wire, if they see it, they can then do it. Okay.
Yep. If they have suspicions, yes.
I don't have a lot to, I don't have a lot to back this up, but I've got a feeling that she's actually off alcohol now. Just going by how active she's been inside in terms of the amount of communication she's had with the judges now, all the way through, and just the way she sounded during the latest motions hearing. She sounded She still sounded like Sarah, just with huge personality problems, right? But she sounded more kind of together and coherent compared to what we'd seen before.
What is
So,
the issue with all these lawyers, Rabbit? Do you know?
well, this is the thing that we were mentioning before. There's some deep-rooted problem with Sarah, as there probably is with all alcoholics, right? There's some reason
Right.
that they're using this to mask whatever emotional turmoil they're in. And it's kind of interesting with Sarah because apparently her problems with alcohol began around the time when her son was born,
Oh.
which was, try to remember now, I think it was about, that would have been, well, her son is now, well, her son was 7 years of age at the time. So she had been living that lifestyle with those problems for 7 years. But that's when it began, according to her ex-husband, and they broke up shortly after that.
Do you think she
Uh,
may have had postpartum depression?
yeah, it could be. And it also is the case that she didn't really have any family. Um, her parents had passed away. Um, her She had a brother who was in the military. She was talking about some of this during the body cam the next morning, because like her main concern that morning was the repercussions from George's family and the fact that she had no one. She kept saying how she has no one, like she only has a brother that she
Mm.
can't get contact with.
Hmm.
Um, and I, I do remember before when I was covering this that there's indications that she had a really problematic childhood.
Oh.
um, Issues with behavior and with her parents and things. I
I'm
think
just
I think
I'm
she
just
has probably the kind of princess syndrome going on. Do you know?
oh, okay. Like entitlement?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh, God, isn't that everywhere?
Because I just don't understand how she doesn't get it that she needs an advocate that knows the system. And without one, she's really going to have a hard go of it, you know? And
Well,
8 lawyers, and like you said, like clearly she has the issue because she's gone through 8 people. I know she said that she feels like these people weren't looking out for her best interest. Were these like court appointed lawyers? Were they, because some of these lawyers,
they were, yeah,
they don't give a damn. You know what
no,
I mean?
yeah. They were definitely
Well,
court appointed.
but see, she hasn't. I don't. From what I've been up to and on, up kept up with, she's never even taken accountability for this.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's our big problem. There's not even a
So,
hint of it. You
so
know?
until she takes accountability for what she's done, there's
Right,
not going to be a
exactly.
lawyer in this world that can help her.
Yeah,
I
because
agree.
she's always falling back on the I was drunk, right?
But is she
That or
though?
the I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
until you take accountability, you're kind of screwed.
We don't even know if she's gonna fall back on that though. That I was just drunk. Like that's because that is as ridiculous as it sounds. That is her defense
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
reality. But has she accepted that? I don't know because from one of our previous attorneys, what we learned was one of the things that he was seeking was um, a psychiatrist or a psychologist witness who specializes in domestic abuse. So was that coming from her? Was that her insistence to go down that avenue, or was that the attorney's? We don't know, right? But
Right.
um, we'll find out. during the trial, what her
Well,
actual belief is.
if that's what she wants, that could come out to not help her one bit. Because
No,
if she wants to see a psychologist for the domestic abuse, that could be in the long run hinder her, because it could show, okay, he abused her that so many times, and he just kept doing it, and that could give intent.
Yeah.
exactly. That would backfire on her because if she's going to argue,
Retaliation.
exactly, if she's going to
So,
argue that this was retaliation because of the domestic violence,
yep.
then you're admitting some intent there. I mean, the domestic violence can be a part of her defense, but the primary defense has got to be her alcoholism. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, like with the domestic violence, the only thing I could see that tying into in this incident is her comments about what she said to him on the when she
Audio.
was recording it.
Yeah.
She made references to things.
This is how it feels when you were choking me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm saying that that domestic violence could turn around and bite her in the ass with intent.
Yep.
Hmm.
For all we know, that could be the reason that she's had so many problems with her attorneys, because she's so dead set on this being her primary argument. She's still where she was during the interrogation and just trying to avoid the alcohol problem. She could possibly still be of that mindset 6 years later.
But it's crazy that she would want to avoid it, because that was a lot of things she was saying. When she called the police, they did show up. I remember her repeatedly saying, I was drunk. I was drunk. I went up. I passed out. I didn't realize.
Yeah, but before that though, she began trying to say they only had a couple of glasses. It took a
Yes,
bit of time
yes,
for her to admit that it was a little bit more than that, and she was actually drunk.
right.
She started off trying to say that they only had a couple of glasses.
I remember that. They had a good day. They were playing games. They
Yeah,
only had a couple
painting,
drinks.
listening to music.
Mm-hmm. Very normal, happy day. Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah, she's gonna
I
have
think
a really rough time.
I think even a lawyer would have a tough time at this one with her.
Yeah.
For
What am I
sure.
saying? I know he would, because she's already went through 8 of them.
Right. Oh my gosh. Somebody's got to be really strong personality to deal with her, and somebody who knows how to deal with a difficult client.
Well, the best probably attorney she could have had on that one's probably sitting in prison in South Carolina right now
Who's that?
for killing his wife and his son.
Enlighten me.
Murdaugh.
Oh, duh. Okay.
Well, Alex Murdaugh.
Yeah, like I said, that probably would have been the best one she could have had.
Right.
The lying piece
Oh
of
my
shit.
God.
God, that guy. Something else, him.
But like I said, it's just like I said, I just don't think like I said, until she takes accountability, this is just going to keep dragging.
Yeah, she has to show remorse. She can't just be thinking about herself.
And you just know as well, she is gonna put herself on the stand. For
Oh,
sure.
brother.
Yeah.
And some people think that this could be another issue that was a problem with our attorneys, that they were insistent that she does not put herself on the stand. And what we know of Sarah, you just know how determined she would be to have her say in court.
Mm.
So I can easily see that being the reason.
But sometimes she doesn't come across very likable.
Oh God, I could see it. I could see a 6-page victim impact statement of how she was abused. Hint, hint, hint.
I know, maybe Merv could be her attorney.
Can you imagine that? Those two in a room?
Yeah, they'll both get locked up. Like Dumb and Dumber and Crazy and Crazier.
There would only be
Well,
one of them walking out of that room, I think.
Yeah, more likely Sarah the Merv. My God, if everything comes to light about that woman, jeez. Just imagine, the way she said, we ain't got nothing to hide, and look at all the crap she does. Yeah, okay, what else is in that closet?
Well, that's like Sarah. She can't take accountability for, hey, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Now I'm gonna leave you in there and stay zipped up in there. See? Okay,
Mm.
I
no.
mean, my God, like, if only she had opened the zipper, even halfway, the guy was already weak. There's not much air in there. And I know she wouldn't be going through all these aspects of it. But, when you're drunk, I know you get goofy and kind of dumb,
Mm-hmm.
but like, it's kind of hard to believe that all the brain cells aren't working,
She was clearly one of these bad drunks. We've all got friends
Oh,
that once they get past a certain amount of drinks, they just get nasty, right? I think she was one of them.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's in that video, I mean, he's sitting there pleading, begging, can't breathe, can't breathe. I don't know how many times. And she's just cursing at him, blah, 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 blah. It's like, ooh, that's not going to help her.
I don't know. How drunk do you honestly have to be to climb your ass in a suitcase and get zipped in?
Well, that's the other thing. She didn't stuff him in there. He went in.
That's what I'm saying. How drunk do you got to be to climb in there?
Well, here's the
That's
funny thing.
stupid.
From what we know, he wasn't actually that drunk, because we have the interviews from his brother where because Sarah and George phoned the brother a couple of hours before this took place. And he describes that George was stone cold sober and Sarah was already, on her
She
way.
had a big head start.
Yeah.
Well, didn't she also make a video where she put her kid in a suitcase and people complained about that?
Yeah,
And
so this
he said
was,
he wanted to. So that's like a little pattern there. That's not very good.
yeah, it was a Facebook post that I think it was on her page, of her son. I think it was her son.
Yeah.
And I think she was with her ex-husband at this time, I think, from what I remember. And this was obviously reported, and
Mhm.
CPS came out and they spoke to the kid and Sarah and the father, and they just said they were just joking around. It was a laugh, and the kid was well aware of it, and
Mhm.
it didn't go any further. But
But now somebody else
this,
is in a suitcase.
well, here's the thing. Here's the other point, right? Because some people just can't get past the fact that how can you be playing hide and seek and using a suitcase? It sounds like the craziest thing in the world, which it
Yeah.
is. But
It's like, let me cover my eyes. Can you find me?
yeah, yeah. But I think this just like that whole Facebook incident, it just gives an indication that this was just their crazy, stupid, dumb lifestyle. I just think they played these dumb kind of games,
That's true. Yeah. I mean, he climbed in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has to have gotten in there voluntarily. There's no other
No
realistic
way
circumstance.
she could zip it up if he was
No.
fighting it and didn't want to do it.
Yeah. So you
So,
have to
yeah.
know that there wasn't any violent issue at that point that he got in there. Like that only has to have begun after that point. So he
Mhm.
has to have consensually gotten in there, right? So
Yeah.
like if you try and picture the situation, because she was describing that, she went up to hide upstairs in the shower and he wasn't coming up, so she was describing this, and then she was like, it was his turn. So you've got to imagine that the suitcase has to have began upstairs in the closet, and he's gone up there and just climbed in the suitcase. And then she's come up the stairs, and then at that point, for whatever reason, she decides to zip it up at that point, and then drags the suitcase to the top of the stairs. She either falls down with the suitcase, or she throws it down, or pushes it down, and then she's just on this escalation from that point.
Yeah, either that or she's sitting down and pushing it with her butt, moving it back and closer. I don't know, because she's not a big woman.
No.
That's crazy. It's one of those things that are like, oh my God, is this for real? It's so crazy that, you know.
It's the craziest of cases. It's
Yeah,
for a lot of reasons. For
bizarre.
sure.
Yeah, hide and seek in the suitcase. That was a good one.
You can't make this shit up for nothing, because I mean, kids are even taught not even to get in, let's say a refrigerator outside and play. Like I said, you can't make this shit up.
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting in September. That's the trial date, as far as I know. So, from a purely true crime entertainment point of view, then it's going to be popcorn time for sure, with her defending herself.
I hope they put this one on. So
yeah,
we can
me
actually
too.
watch.
I think they will. I think they will. Yes, this case has gotten quite a lot of attention over the last year or so. So I think for sure it'll be on.
Was it now September, did you say?
September was the last date I heard, yeah.
Well, who knows what she's going to come up with between now and September, though.
Right. We'll be there for it, though.
Well, if this past 6 years is any indicator, not looking good for her.
Well, well, think of this. Let's say it's set and it actually says, okay, we're for a go. Can you just imagine when it's time to sit here and pick the jury with her?
I know.
I mean, yes, I approve. No, I don't. Just picking a jury could take a month.
Right. Can you imagine the questions? Do you have any bias against people with an obscene personality?
Or how about bias against alcoholics? And
right.
There's a lot there.
That's kind of like saying, "Do you mind S&M?"
Yeah. Would you judge a person? How do you feel about suitcases?
Oh my God.
I mean, this guy had to be little too, right? I mean, the average guy, I can't imagine fitting into a suitcase.
Yeah, he was pretty small and scrawny.
I mean, like, I can't fit my husband in a suitcase. Not that I want to. I'm just saying, like, I can't see a man fitting in a suitcase,
Hell, I couldn't fit in a suitcase 30 years ago.
I could, but I don't want to go in.
That'd have only made me like 25. I still couldn't have did it.
No.
Funnily enough, most of us have never had to think about it.
Right? It's not a normal thing. Hide and seek. Where you want to hide? In the suitcase. Okay, zip me up.
Right.
That's gotta be, that right there makes me question, did this woman have a psychological exam? Like, there's so much here that it's just not okay.
Yeah.
I would think they would have to consider that, as a mitigating circumstance. Like, is she wrapped too tight? Not really, but it ain't like her saran wrap is laying on the floor completely,
Oh, Anna's saying that it's actually the 7th October.
Oh.
Next one. Okay. So hard to keep up to date with this, because there's been like about 85 different trial dates. 3 times.
85. Good grief.
Hell, Beth, you'd have fit in a microwave box. What the hell are you talking about?
Oh my
All right.
gosh.
All right, guys, I need to jump down now. It was really cool to jump up and talk about it.
Well, it's
No,
Old
nice
Sarah.
to
it was good,
nice to
Rabbit.
meet
Thanks.
you, Rabid.
You're
It was
welcome.
nice to, like I
Yeah,
said,
it's good.
it makes you really want to dig into that, Kate. You know, really
Mhm.
watch it, pay, because that, like that Karen Reed one,
Yeah.
that was just a cluster
Oh,
from the beginning.
oh my God, it's fascinating to me, and I'm actually watching it back. I obviously know it was a mistrial, but it's still fascinating to go through the trial. I'm on day 12 now, I think, and wow, it's a good one.
It's a good one until you get into where things, the way the investigation was handled. I mean, all them cops sounded like rookies doing it.
Yeah, I mean the red flags in terms of law enforcement, already from what I've seen are huge.
I
Doesn't
mean,
necessarily mean that she was framed, but law enforcement, wow.
I mean, that's like, they showed his arms. Okay, why would they should have never let that dog. They should have
Hmm.
taken that dog into possession and put it in the pound or something and had it tested.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like I said, there was just things that were so mishandled in that case.
Yeah.
You're talking about like that woman that backed up at the car and hit the guy in the driveway, right?
Well, they say she did, but there's no proof of it.
Is there snow on the ground? Right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
What if he was running after her and he slipped
but it says
and she didn't
he
know?
flew like 30 feet, I think.
What happened?
But I think, if I can remember correctly, it said it's like it was 30. He was thrown like 30 feet, and
Oh,
that wouldn't give the marks and stuff on his arms.
that's
Like I
a
said,
good distance.
but like I said, the people had a dog there. That was never. They were able to give the dog away, get rid of the dog, without it even being taken in.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was only like a few months afterwards, right?
Yes.
They got rid of it.
So what do
Yeah.
they think? The dog bit him and dragged him or something?
Well, they
Like-
think that like he was beaten by people, but then the
Oh.
dog came up and was just scavenging and making the marks, perhaps.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Gross.
But I mean, yeah, like I said, to me, the policemen seemed like rookies. They really did.
Yeah, how do you not secure everything there? Because you never know.
Well, there's all these connections to the family, right? That's the heart of this case. So
Mm.
there's a lot of indications of potential cover-ups and framings going on for what I can see so far, but I'm only partly through it, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
I
Mm.
mean, they done moved him already. He is no longer in that district.
Hmm.
As soon as it came back as a mistrial, they came back with the paperwork. I mean, the interview saying he was getting moved.
Hmm. All right, guys, I got to run.
All right,
Thanks
Rabbit.
again.
Thank you.
Thanks for
We
the
enjoyed it.
conversation.
What's that?
Thank you for the conversation. It's nice to hear
Oh, you're
different
welcome.
viewpoints.
Yeah, it's great to talk about this case, to get other people's opinions on it, you know, because it's definitely a unique one, right?
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys, see you later.
It was fun.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye.